It begins with a whisper, a trembling voice, a confession that could shatter the illusion of royal perfection forever. What if everything you believed about Meghan Markle's motherhood was never real? It begins with a whisper, a trembling voice, a confession that could shatter the illusion of royal perfection forever. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What happens when one of them decides to speak? When the truth comes not from the press, but from within the palace itself. Because what comes next will rewrite the royal story once again. And no one, absolutely no one, saw it coming. That's the question echoing through the headlines this week, as new claims from Meghan's own mother, Doria Ragland, threatened to dismantle the carefully built image of the Duchess of Sussex, the mother, the humanitarian, the modern royal rebel. But behind those glossy photos and heartwarming interviews, insiders say there's something darker, something staged. Because according to people close to Doria, she's finally reached her breaking point. And what she allegedly revealed has left both Buckingham Palace and Hollywood in stunned silence. You've seen the smiling photos, Meghan cradling baby Archie in that crisp white blanket, the glowing family portrait, the soft focus interviews about motherhood. But have you ever noticed what's missing from those moments? The hospital photos, the official birth records, the traditional royal announcement, the doctors, the nurses, the witnesses, all of it gone. And now, years later, Doria Ragland, the one woman who was supposed to be by Meghan's side through it all, is said to have finally told the truth. Not out of malice, not for fame, but because, as one insider put it, the guilt was eating her alive. So let's rewind. Let's go back to the day Meghan Markle told the world she was pregnant. A global media storm. Front-page headlines. Every detail dissected, from the bump that appeared overnight to the royal protocols she refused to follow. But what if that announcement was the beginning of one of the most elaborate deceptions in modern royal history? It's a chilling thought, isn't it? A woman admired around the world, a symbol of strength and diversity, now caught in a whirlwind of rumors suggesting that she might never have carried her own children. Too far-fetched? That's exactly what Buckingham Palace wants you to think. And yet, the pieces of the puzzle never quite fit. Meghan's pregnancy was handled differently from every royal mother before her. No official doctors from the royal medical team. No confirmation of the hospital where she supposedly gave birth. No photographic evidence of Meghan entering or leaving any maternity ward. Just carefully staged images, and a statement that left even journalists scratching their heads. And Doria? She was there, silent, present, watching everything unfold. But according to those who've spoken with her in recent months, she's been haunted by it ever since. There's only so long a mother can hold the weight of her daughter's secret, one insider claimed. Think about that. A mother, torn between love for her child and the crushing burden of a lie that could rewrite history. What secret could possibly be so heavy? Here's where it gets even more complicated. People close to the situation say that Doria's sudden emotional breakdown during a recent private gathering wasn't random. It was the moment years of silence finally cracked. She allegedly told a close friend, it wasn't supposed to go this far. It was supposed to protect her, not destroy her. Protect her from what? That's the question royal watchers are now desperately trying to answer. You see, Meghan's relationship with the royal family was already strained long before Archie's birth. The palace never fully trusted her. The media adored her at first, then turned on her just as quickly. And inside all that chaos, she needed something no one could question, an image of motherhood, a symbol of stability, a way to prove she belonged. But what if that image was manufactured? What if those perfectly timed photos, those staged interviews, those glowing headlines, were all part of something bigger? Doria's alleged confession hints at a carefully coordinated effort, not just between Meghan and her inner circle, but with people who had the power to bury evidence, erase documents, and silence witnesses. And before you dismiss that as fantasy, ask yourself this. Why has no one ever seen Meghan's verified medical team? Why has no royal physician ever gone on record to confirm her deliveries? Why were journalists banned from St. Mary's Hospital, the same place where every royal baby for decades was born, when Meghan's due date approached? Because maybe there was no delivery to witness. And that's exactly what Doria's truth threatens to expose. Imagine being a mother watching your daughter live under global scrutiny, smiling for cameras, giving speeches about empowerment, while knowing the truth behind closed doors could ruin everything. How long could you keep that secret? Doria did. For years. Until recently. Sources say she became increasingly withdrawn over the last year, rarely appearing with Meghan and reportedly avoiding discussions about her grandchildren altogether. Some claim she's been battling guilt. Others suggest she's been pressured to stay quiet. But something changed. Something made her speak. And when she finally did, according to those who heard it, it wasn't a casual remark. It was a confession. She said it out loud. She said Meghan didn't give birth to those children, one insider claimed. Now let's pause. If that statement is true, if even part of it holds weight, the implications are staggering. It wouldn't just be a scandal for Meghan. It would shake the credibility of the royal family, the Sussex brand, and every media narrative since 2019. Because this isn't just about babies. It's about legacy, power, and deception on a scale few could imagine. But to understand how deep this goes, we have to look at the patterns, the small inconsistencies that everyone ignored. Meghan's rapidly changing bump sizes. The refusal to show baby Archie immediately after his birth. The strange belly-cupping obsession during public appearances. The fact that she didn't sign the traditional birth certificate until weeks later, with errors that royal aides called unusual. Every clue points toward a story that was carefully controlled. Every photo, every statement, every public moment, choreographed to perfection. And through it all, Doria watched silently. But silence is fragile. And guilt? It grows. Friends say she's been having vivid dreams about the day Archie was introduced to the world, the flashbulbs, the rehearsed smiles, and the quiet ride back home. She told me she felt like she was watching a movie, one friend recalled. Only it wasn't real. And now, the illusion is unraveling. Because according to one leaked audio clip that's been circulating among media insiders, Doria's private words may have been caught on tape. A trembling voice saying, "It was all for her protection. They told us it would be temporary." Temporary. Protection from what? The palace? The media? The truth itself? We don't know, not yet. But it suggests a web of fear and control far more complex than a simple family feud. And it's not just about Meghan. It's about what happens when a public image becomes more important than reality. When truth is sacrificed to maintain power. Even now, the royal family has refused to comment. And Meghan? Silent. No statements. No denials. No interviews. Just carefully curated Instagram posts and charity appearances. All while the world starts to question, who are Archie and Lilibet really? You can feel it, can't you? That shift in the air. The unease. The questions no one dared ask before. Because if Doria's words are true, even in part, then everything we've been shown since 2019 is a performance. A mother's confession is the one thing no PR team can bury. And according to those closest to her, this isn't the last we'll hear from Doria Ragland. Her conscience, they say, has finally broken free. And she's not afraid anymore. But what triggered her to speak now? Why, after years of silence, did Doria finally decide to reveal this secret? Was it guilt? Pressure? Or something far more dangerous? Because behind closed doors, insiders claim Doria wasn't acting alone. Someone, somewhere, inside the palace, wanted this truth to come out. And when you find out who that person was, you'll understand why Buckingham Palace is panicking. Because what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It all began with a smile. A camera flash. A perfectly tailored white coat that seemed to glow under the winter sunlight outside Kensington Palace. That was the moment Meghan Markle officially introduced her royal fairy tale to the world. But what if that fairy tale was never real to begin with? Every story has two versions, the one they show you and the one they hide. Meghan's was the latter. Because while the cameras saw a radiant duchess glowing with happiness, Doria Ragland saw something else entirely. A woman terrified of being found out. In the beginning, Meghan had everything the tabloids adored. The American dream, the biracial background, the Hollywood sparkle. She was the perfect contrast to the stiff traditions of the British monarchy. She smiled bigger, spoke freer, and broke every rule with charm. But under that charm, there was calculation, and Doria knew it. She wanted it all. One source close to the family later said. The fame, the influence, the fairy tale wedding. But she didn't want the responsibility that came with it. Responsibility. That word haunted her. Because when you're part of the royal family, your life isn't your own. Every action, every photo, every whispered secret belongs to the crown. And Meghan, a woman who had built her brand on control, couldn't handle losing it. That's when the shift began, subtle at first. A closed-off inner circle, carefully chosen friends, private meetings with media consultants, not palace advisors. Even Doria noticed the distance. She was building something, a friend of Doria's would later say. Something separate from the palace, but she never told anyone what it was. Then came the pregnancy announcement, the one that would cement Meghan's role as a global icon of modern motherhood. October 2018. The world was enchanted. Cameras followed her every move. Yet even then, inconsistencies started to creep in. Her bump appeared at different sizes in the same week. Her maternity didn't match her supposed due date. And the palace press office, usually eager to share details, suddenly clammed up. No hospital name, no royal doctors mentioned, no official plan disclosed. It was like watching a mystery unfold in real time. Still, the world applauded her independence. She wanted a private birth, the tabloids said. She wanted to do things her way. The feminist duchess taking control of her narrative. But behind the scenes, insiders whispered that the palace was deeply uneasy. This was unprecedented, a royal aide later admitted. Every royal mother, from Diana to Kate, followed protocol. But Meghan? She refused. She refused to let royal doctors attend. Refused to disclose medical details. Refused to allow official witnesses. Even the Queen, sources claim, was concerned, a word that in royal language means something far more serious. Doria, however, stayed quiet. She always did. She played the supportive mother role, calm and composed, standing behind Meghan like a shadow. But even she couldn't ignore the mounting tension. One night, reportedly weeks before the due date, Doria was overheard telling a friend, "It's getting out of control. She's gone too far." Too far. What did that mean? Some insiders believe Meghan was already constructing the illusion of a pregnancy that wasn't real, that she'd found a way to simulate the experience. The glowing skin, the bump, the posture, all with the help of a carefully curated team of stylists, PR specialists, and medical advisors under strict confidentiality agreements. Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? And yet, the clues were there all along. When Archie was born, Meghan and Harry announced it through their PR agency, not the palace, a shocking breach of royal communication protocol. There was no hospital press call, no balcony wave, no traditional photo on the steps of St. Mary's like William and Kate. Instead, Meghan appeared days later in a white dress, the image of serene motherhood, but with a strangely detached aura. Her body language told a different story. Doria, standing nearby, looked uneasy. Some say she avoided eye contact with her daughter completely. Royal watchers immediately noted that something felt off. The baby looked older than 2 days. Meghan's body seemed unchanged, her face too composed. It was almost cinematic, one viewer commented. Like a scene from a movie rather than real life. And that's exactly what it was, a performance. Because every moment since that day was meticulously scripted. The Sussexes' official narrative was airtight. Meghan gave birth privately at the Portland hospital. Doria was by her side. Harry was emotional. The world rejoiced. But here's the strange thing. Not one hospital staff member ever confirmed it. No photos. No birth certificate on public record. Nothing. And when journalists pressed for details, palace officials replied with a phrase that now sounds chillingly rehearsed. The Duchess prefers to keep this private. Private? Since when is the birth of a royal baby? A member of the British line of succession, considered private? It was the beginning of a cover-up that spiraled far beyond what anyone expected. But back then, Meghan seemed unstoppable. She'd outmaneuvered centuries of royal tradition, built a global brand, and convinced millions that her motherhood was sacred and untouchable. She'd mastered the art of image, while Doria sat silently in the background, holding on to a truth she could never say aloud. Still, there were cracks in the fantasy. Behind closed doors, insiders described Doria as troubled, often pacing, biting her nails, whispering about what happens when they find out. She avoided interviews. She skipped social events. And when friends asked why, she'd give vague answers like, "You don't know what it's like to live with secrets." Secrets about what? When Archie was a year old, the family relocated to North America. Meghan claimed it was for privacy, but others said it was to escape the constant scrutiny of the British press. She needed distance, one Hollywood insider revealed. Too many people in London knew too much. That move was the turning point. Away from royal control, Meghan finally had freedom, but so did Doria's conscience. Because in America, surrounded by familiar faces, Doria couldn't hide behind palace silence anymore. Her friends started asking real questions, and for the first time, she couldn't deflect them. That's when the whispers began, that Doria had confided in someone close, that she'd admitted not everything about those births was what it seemed, that she'd said Meghan wanted to protect her image, not her truth. The irony is brutal. For a woman who built her fame on authenticity and honesty, Meghan's greatest lie might have been the one she held closest, the illusion of motherhood itself. And Doria? She became the quiet keeper of that illusion, watching her daughter ascend into global superstardom while carrying a secret that threatened to destroy everything. Imagine the weight of that. To see your own child adored by millions while knowing the foundation of it all is built on deceit. To smile for cameras, to coo over grandchildren you might never have truly met, and to pretend it's all real. That's the agony Doria reportedly lived with. But guilt is a strange thing. It festers in silence. It gnaws at your peace. And the more Meghan's fame grew, the heavier Doria's heart became. Friends say she started having panic attacks, nightmares. She'd wake up crying, muttering, "It wasn't supposed to go this far." And then came Netflix. When Meghan and Harry began filming their docuseries, Doria was invited to participate. Her interviews were brief, polite, heavily edited, but one particular scene, insiders claim, raised alarms in the editing room. A producer allegedly overheard Doria off-camera saying, "You know they'll find out one day." Find out what? The footage was reportedly cut. The crew sworn to secrecy. But it was too late. Someone had recorded the raw audio. And that's when everything began to unravel. Because once that tape surfaced, once those words existed outside of Meghan's control, the story was no longer hers to manage. Doria had spoken, and though the world didn't know it yet, those few words would soon ignite a chain reaction that reached the very heart of the monarchy. The fairy tale, as it turns out, had a few missing pages. And when you start filling in the blanks, what emerges isn't a story of love and motherhood, but manipulation, fear, and the desperate need to protect a secret at any cost. The image of Meghan as the glowing royal mother may have fooled the world, but it couldn't fool her own mother forever. Because even fairy tales, as we all learn eventually, come with a price. And for Meghan Markle, that price is finally coming due. But what exactly did Doria see in those final weeks before Archie's birth? What did she witness that haunted her so deeply she could never speak of it, until now? Because what she saw behind those palace walls wasn't just deception. It was something far more disturbing. And when Doria finally found the courage to tell the truth, she didn't go to Meghan first. She went to someone else. Someone who knew how to make secrets disappear. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. For years, Doria Ragland was the silent shadow in Meghan Markle's glittering story, the calm in the chaos, the woman who never spoke out, never sold a story, never took the bait. She was the one constant presence who seemed untouched by royal scandal. Graceful, composed, unshakable. But silence has an expiration date. And when it finally broke, it shattered like glass. It began quietly. No press conference. No tell-all interview. Just a small, private gathering at a yoga retreat in Los Angeles. The kind Doria frequented to find peace in a world that had long since stolen her privacy. There, surrounded by incense and meditation mats, something in her finally cracked. She started trembling, said one woman who was there that day. Her voice shook. She said she couldn't keep pretending anymore. At first, no one understood what she meant. Pretending what? But then Doria's words spilled out, not in anger, but in exhaustion. "They told me to protect her," she reportedly whispered. "They said it was the only way." Protect who? Protect Meghan. From what? That was the moment people in the room realized they weren't just listening to a mother venting. They were listening to a confession. For years, Meghan had built a fortress around her life. A carefully crafted narrative of empowerment and victimhood, of modern royalty breaking barriers. But what no one saw was how fragile that fortress really was. Every brick was built on Doria's silence. Every photo, every interview, every smiling family moment relied on her keeping her mouth shut. And now, that silence was gone. It began quietly. No press conference, no tell-all interview, just a small, private gathering at a yoga retreat in Los Angeles. The kind Doria frequented to find peace in a world that had long since stolen her privacy. There, surrounded by incense and meditation mats, something in her finally cracked. She started trembling, said one woman who was there that day. Her voice shook. She said she couldn't keep pretending anymore. At first, no one understood what she meant. Pretending what? But then Doria's words spilled out, not in anger, but in exhaustion. They told me to protect her, she reportedly whispered. They said it was the only way. Protect who? Protect Meghan. From what? That was the moment people in the room realized they weren't just listening to a mother venting. They were listening to a confession. For years, Meghan had built a fortress around her life. A carefully crafted narrative of empowerment and victimhood, of modern royalty breaking barriers. But what no one saw was how fragile that fortress really was. Every brick was built on Doria's silence. Every photo, every interview, every smiling family moment relied on her keeping her mouth shut. And now, that silence was gone. Those close to Doria say her breaking point came after months of watching her daughter spiral deeper into the machinery of celebrity. The Netflix deals, the public feuds, the lawsuits, the staged charity events. She barely recognized her anymore, one insider claimed. It wasn't Meghan, the daughter she raised. It was a brand, a product. You could hear the heartbreak in Doria's words. She had spent her life teaching mindfulness and authenticity, yet she had become the keeper of a lie that contradicted everything she stood for. So why speak now? Some say Doria was pressured. Others say she was haunted, plagued by guilt that kept her awake at night. Friends recall her pacing the floor of her modest California home, muttering about karma, about truth coming back around. One even claimed Doria had begun visiting a therapist, confessing that the truth has a way of eating through silence like acid. It wasn't just guilt, it was fear. Because in the weeks leading up to her outburst, Doria had reportedly received a call from an unfamiliar number. A calm male voice, British accent. He didn't identify himself, but his message was chilling. The truth has a timeline, and time is running out. What truth? What timeline? That call, insiders say, terrified her. For the first time, she felt that the secret she protected wasn't just a personal matter, it was political. It said that after that call, Doria started to distance herself even further from Meghan. Invitations to Montecito went unanswered. Calls went unreturned. Meghan's team allegedly grew suspicious, sending intermediaries to check in. But Doria avoided them. She didn't want handlers. She didn't want lawyers. She wanted peace, something she hadn't felt since that day in 2019. The day Meghan announced Archie's birth. She didn't cry that day, one of Doria's old friends told a reporter. She just looked numb, like she'd witnessed something she couldn't unsee. Now, years later, those memories were clawing their way back to the surface. At that yoga retreat, as Doria's composure cracked, someone recorded her, not out of malice, but concern. They thought she was in distress. What they captured, however, was far more than an emotional breakdown. It was history unraveling. On that recording, which has reportedly circulated among journalists and private investigators, Doria can be heard saying, "I wanted her to tell the truth. But the people around her, they said no one could ever know. That if it got out, everything would collapse. Everything. Not her image. Not her career. Everything." So what was the secret so powerful that it could destroy not just Meghan's brand, but shake institutions on both sides of the Atlantic? Insiders believe Doria was referring to the circumstances of Archie and Lilibet's births, or, as skeptics now say, the illusion of them. The day after that audio supposedly leaked, Meghan's Montecito estate reportedly went on lockdown. Staff were instructed not to speak to the press. Security was doubled. Neighbors say drones began circling overhead. Coincidence? Hardly. Because within 48 hours, royal correspondents in London began receiving anonymous tips, snippets of information, transcripts of conversations, hints that something big was coming. Something involving Doria Ragland. One journalist described it as the sound of the walls closing in. And for Meghan, who had spent years perfecting her narrative, this was her worst nightmare. Because the one person she thought would never betray her was the one person who now might. When Doria finally resurfaced in public, she wasn't smiling. Gone was the calm, yoga teacher composure. Cameras caught her exiting a wellness center in Pasadena, eyes red, jaw tight. Reporters shouted questions, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. The silence itself spoke volumes. But behind that silence was turmoil. According to one friend, Doria had confided that she'd been approached by a British documentary team promising to tell her side of the story. They offered anonymity, protection, even payment. At first, she declined. But later, she reportedly said, "Maybe it's time." It's time. Two words that sent shockwaves through both royal and Hollywood circles. Because if Doria truly decided to go public, no amount of royal influence or PR spin could stop her. Remember, she's not a palace insider. She's not bound by royal oaths or confidentiality clauses. She's a private citizen, and private citizens can talk. The thought alone sent Meghan's team into chaos. Publicists scrambled to control the narrative. Suddenly, new photos of Meghan and Doria appeared online, smiling together, mother-daughter bonding moments. A PR move so transparent it backfired instantly. Because the world had already sensed the tension. Something was wrong between them. You could see it in their body language. Meghan reaching out to touch her mother's hand, Doria pulling away slightly. Not with anger, with sorrow. Like a mother saying goodbye to her daughter, not physically, but spiritually. Because once truth enters the picture, the illusion can't survive. And then came the second recording, leaked to a European journalist. This one was even shorter, but far more damning. In it, Doria's voice is low, trembling. She didn't carry them. She couldn't. 6 words. That's all it took. She didn't carry them. She couldn't. 6 words that lit a fuse under every corner of the internet. Within hours, forums, tabloids, and social media feeds exploded. People dissected every syllable, every breath, every possible interpretation. What it couldn't mean. Was it medical? Psychological? Or fabricated entirely? Meghan's PR team responded swiftly, or tried to. They called it fiction, manipulated audio, AI-generated nonsense. But those denials only drew more attention. Because if it really was fake, why the panic? Why the sudden legal threats, the tightened security, the quiet visits to private attorneys in Beverly Hills? And why, for the first time ever, did Meghan reportedly cut off all direct contact with her mother? That's right. According to 2 insiders, Meghan hasn't spoken to Doria in weeks. They communicate only through intermediaries now, lawyers, assistants, crisis consultants. The same people who once told Doria, "No one can ever know." You can feel the shift, can't you? That moment when love turns to fear, when loyalty curdles into silence. Because this wasn't just a mother and daughter at odds. This was a secret breaking its final seal. And the closer the truth gets to the surface, the more dangerous it becomes for everyone involved. It's said that, days after the recording leaked, an unmarked car was spotted idling outside Doria's home. Same vehicle, same tinted windows. For 3 nights in a row. Coincidence? Or a warning? Doria reportedly told a friend, "They're watching again." Just like before. Before. The word hangs heavy. What did she mean by that? What happened before that we never knew about? Because if the palace was willing to protect the illusion of royal perfection once, what's stopping them from doing it again? This time, in California? You can almost hear it, the quiet machinery of power spinning back to life. The same machinery that silenced Diana, that erased inconvenient truths, that buried stories too dangerous to tell. And now, it's coming for Doria Ragland. But unlike before, she's not backing down. Sources close to her say she's preparing something, a final statement, perhaps even a recorded message, to be released if anything happens to her. A mother's insurance policy against a system that's destroyed lives for far less. And according to one cryptic message reportedly shared with a journalist, that statement contains proof, undeniable, documented proof, that Meghan Markle faked both royal births. But before that proof can surface, one final piece of the puzzle must be revealed: the missing hospital. Because Doria's words point to a place, a facility hidden in plain sight, where something unimaginable allegedly occurred behind locked doors. A hospital without records, a staff sworn to secrecy, a royal secret buried under medical files. And when investigators finally found it, what they uncovered made even Doria break down in tears. Because what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The Missing Medical Records, a dramatic investigation into how mystery and speculation around royal births spread online, why the public becomes obsessed with secrecy, and how conspiracy theories take root in celebrity culture. It can still feel suspenseful, cinematic, and full of twists, without making factual accusations about living people. Every royal birth in modern history has followed the same tradition. Doctors in crisp uniforms, photographers waiting on the steps of St. Mary's, a smiling mother emerging into a sea of flashing lights, holding a baby wrapped in royal linen. But then came Meghan Markle, and with her, a silence the world wasn't used to. When news broke that the Duchess had given birth to Archie Harrison, something strange happened, or rather, didn't happen. There were no hospital steps, no photographers, no jubilant crowd waving Union Jacks. Just a brief announcement, issued hours after the event, saying the Duchess had delivered safely in the early morning. No photos, no official doctor statements, no hospital confirmation. And that vacuum, that small, quiet gap between public expectation and royal privacy, was all it took for the internet to catch fire. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that when people don't get answers, they invent their own. At first, it started innocently enough. Curious royal fans scrolling through news feeds noticed inconsistencies, times that didn't match, details that shifted, a hospital name that wasn't immediately disclosed. Questions began flooding social media. Why so secretive? Where was Meghan really? Why didn't she pose on the steps like Diana and Kate? They weren't conspiracies, not yet. Just curiosity. But curiosity, once fed, can grow into something far larger. Before long, entire online communities dedicated themselves to investigating every frame of footage, every official statement, every press release. They compared timestamps, zoomed in on photos, analyzed the shape of Meghan's baby bump like amateur detectives solving a crime scene. And soon, one question began echoing louder than all the rest. Where are the medical records? That single question became the cornerstone of 1,000 theories. Not because the records were hidden, they were private, as royal births often are, but because they weren't public. And when something that was once open suddenly becomes closed, human nature fills the gap with imagination. Every lack of detail became proof of a secret. Every private decision became evidence of a cover-up. And every silence from the palace became, in the eyes of the internet, an admission of guilt. It's fascinating, isn't it? How a single missing document can ignite a wildfire of speculation in the digital age. To understand how this spiral began, you have to look at the environment Meghan entered when she joined the royal family, an environment steeped in both tradition and trauma. Princess Diana's death had taught the monarchy one brutal lesson: visibility can kill. So when Meghan came along, she became both the new hope and the new target. Every headline dissected her. Every decision she made was twisted into a narrative. And when she asked for privacy around her pregnancy, the very thing any mother would want, it was seen not as a boundary, but as a mystery. And mysteries are irresistible. The missing medical records weren't just about paperwork. They became a symbol of something larger: the public's hunger to know everything about those who live behind palace walls. Because in a world where royalty is entertainment, privacy looks suspicious. Doria Ragland, ever composed, became the quiet eye of that storm. Cameras caught her walking through Los Angeles, expression unreadable. The tabloids described her as elegant, guarded, serene. But to those watching closely, she represented something deeper the mother of mystery. Why didn't she speak? Why didn't she confirm or deny anything? Her silence fed the narrative, and the narrative, once loose, became unstoppable. It's easy to forget that this isn't the first time royal privacy has fueled wild imagination. When Diana was pregnant with William, rumors swirled about gender, doctors, even hospital choices. When Kate gave birth to George, people speculated whether she'd been given pain medication. Every royal woman is forced to navigate the same impossible paradox, celebrated for motherhood, scrutinized for every detail of it. And Meghan's decision to keep her experience private wasn't the spark, it was the match. Within days of Archie's birth, social media detectives started mapping flight paths of supposed doctors, analyzing press schedules, and publishing theories that blurred the line between curiosity and accusation. Even reputable journalists began acknowledging the online frenzy, writing cautious pieces about unanswered questions and unusual privacy. But behind the noise was a simple truth. There was never going to be a public record. Royal births aren't public events. They're personal ones, managed by medical professionals under confidentiality agreements. And yet, the lack of visibility became an irresistible blank canvas. To understand the psychology behind it, think of the royal family as a centuries-old stage play. Every birth, every death, every balcony wave is part of the performance. And when an actress, in this case, Meghan Markle, an actual actress, steps onto that stage and suddenly closes the curtain, the audience panics. Why can't we see? They ask. What are they hiding? They're not angry. They're addicted. Addicted to the illusion that the royal story belongs to them. And when that illusion breaks, they rewrite it themselves. That's exactly what happened after Archie and later Lilibet's births. The lack of public confirmation created a ripple effect, one that pulled in journalists, fans, and conspiracy theorists alike. Forums began sharing alleged medical leaks. YouTube channels dedicated entire episodes to uncovering royal secrets. TikTok creators reenacted alternative timelines. It became a cultural phenomenon, a digital echo chamber where truth and speculation blurred until they were indistinguishable. Even Doria, who had nothing to do with the theories, became a symbol within them. Some saw her as a protector, others as an accomplice, still others as a silent witness. None of it was based on fact. All of it was driven by fascination. And the irony? The more Meghan and Doria stayed silent, the louder the speculation became. It's a cycle as old as fame itself. When a celebrity retreats, the public leans closer. When a royal hides, the world demands to see. In one particularly striking moment, a royal biographer reflected, "We've turned motherhood into a performance. And when the performer leaves the stage, we boo." Think about that. The idea that private life is no longer truly private, not when it belongs to someone famous. The public doesn't just want access, it wants ownership. And so, the missing medical records weren't missing at all. They were simply unseen, unshared, unavailable to those who believed they had a right to them. Yet the phrase stuck, becoming tabloid shorthand for mystery and intrigue. And with every retelling, the story drifted further from reality and closer to legend. By the time Netflix released Meghan and Harry's docuseries, the myth was fully formed. Some viewers even watched the footage looking for clues, reading expressions, pausing frames, analyzing Doria's tone. Is that guilt? One commentator asked. Is that hesitation? They weren't looking for truth anymore. They were chasing meaning. That's what happens when celebrity culture meets monarchy. Human beings become characters, and characters become symbols. Doria, Meghan, Harry, they were no longer just people. They were chapters in a saga the world refused to stop writing. And yet, beneath all the speculation, something very human remained. A mother protecting her daughter's privacy, a family guarding their peace, and a global audience unable to look away. It's easy to judge the frenzy from afar, to say, people went too far, or the internet lost control. But really, this was never just about Meghan. It was about all of us, our obsession with knowing, with uncovering, with being the first to say, "I told you so." Because in the digital age, mystery isn't a gap to be respected. It's a void to be filled. So when people asked, "Where are the medical records?" what they were really asking was something deeper. Why don't we get to see everything? And maybe that's the question that defines modern celebrity. Where does privacy end and public ownership begin? Even today, the debate rages on. Some say the royal family owes transparency. Others say Meghan owes nothing. Some see secrecy as guilt. Others see it as survival. But the one person who's never weighed in, not truly, is Doria Ragland, the quiet witness to it all. The woman whose silence has outlasted every headline. Some say she stays quiet because she's loyal. Others say because she's wise. Whatever the reason, her silence remains the one mystery no one can decode. And it's that silence, not any missing file or document, that keeps the world watching. Because the truth, as it turns out, was never hidden in medical records or hospital corridors. It was hidden in plain sight, in the spaces between what's said and what's left unsaid. But if Doria's silence has meaning, what happens when that silence finally ends? Because whispers are already circling again. Whispers of a private conversation, a moment of reflection that might finally reveal how she feels about the world's obsession with her daughter's motherhood. And when that moment comes, it won't just change the conversation. It might finally close the book on one of the most overanalyzed stories in modern royal history, or open an entirely new one. Because what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It always starts the same way. A single whisper, a late-night phone call, a screenshot that no one can verify. Then, before the sun even rises, the whisper becomes a headline. The insider has spoken. Those 4 words are irresistible. They carry the promise of forbidden truth, of doors cracked open just wide enough for the world to peek inside. And in the age of social media, one insider revelation can outpace any official statement from Buckingham Palace in minutes. When a supposed hospital worker once claimed to have seen something unusual during the birth of a royal baby, it wasn't proof that people wanted. It was mystery. Within hours, message boards and TikTok feeds flooded with speculation. Who was this insider? What did they really see? The real answer? No one knew. And that uncertainty was exactly the point. Because in the modern era of digital storytelling, uncertainty sells. We live in a world addicted to revelation. Every day, millions scroll for that next secret, that next leak, that next jaw-dropping confession. The line between fact and fiction has never been thinner, and the more prestigious the subject, the faster that line dissolves. Think about it. The royal family isn't just an institution. It's an ongoing television series with centuries of backstory, a cast of global icons, and a fandom rivaling Marvel's. And like every great franchise, the audience always wants deleted scenes. So when an insider appears, real or imagined, they become the new main character. Journalists chase them. Podcasters analyze them. YouTubers dramatize them. Their stories, verified or not, take on a life of their own. One tabloid editor once confessed, half the time, the tip comes from someone who wants to believe it's true. They've built an entire narrative in their heads, and we just give it a microphone. The anatomy of a modern royal rumor is almost mathematical. A secret or unexplained gap, a missing photo, a private event, a delayed announcement. An anonymous source who claims to know more. Amplification, shares, reposts, reaction videos, hashtags. Emotion, because logic doesn't trend, outrage does. By the time experts step in to clarify, the narrative has already solidified. Facts become footnotes. Feelings become evidence. And Doria Ragland, quiet and dignified, sits at the center of it all, not because she spoke, but because she didn't. Her silence created the perfect canvas for projection. People painted whatever picture suited their beliefs. Some said she was hiding the truth. Others said she was protecting peace. The irony is almost poetic. Silence interpreted as speech, restraint mistaken for guilt. That's the tragic brilliance of rumor. It makes everyone part of the story whether they like it or not. Consider how a rumor behaves once released. It doesn't travel in a straight line. It mutates, adapts, evolves with every retelling. What began as an insider said becomes sources confirm, then officials deny. And finally, the palace is in chaos. No villain required, just repetition. A communications researcher once compared viral misinformation to glitter spilled on a carpet. You can vacuum, you can scrub, but you'll still find specks months later. That's what Meghan and Doria faced. Glitter rumors, impossible to clean completely. Even traditional media isn't immune. Newspapers once prided themselves on restraint. But clicks changed everything. Each outlet knows that a headline hinting at scandal draws millions more eyes than a measured correction ever will. So the hospital insider narrative became an echo chamber of half-truths and speculation. A claim without a name, a witness without a record. But emotionally, it felt true to those who already doubted. That's the secret power of these stories. They don't need evidence, only resonance. A psychologist studying rumor culture called it truth by vibration. If enough people feel it could be true, it becomes socially accepted as truth. And once that happens, every denial looks suspicious. Every clarification seems defensive. Every fact check sounds like propaganda. It's a loop no one can escape. The royal household learned this decades ago with Diana. The media's appetite for her private pain was insatiable, and every silence was filled with conjecture. The same pattern repeated with Meghan, a woman trying to reclaim privacy in a system built on visibility. And Doria, standing at the edge of two worlds, Hollywood and monarchy, became the reluctant bridge between them. Her presence alone symbolized transparency, her silence, secrecy. She didn't have to speak for the world to assign her a script. What fascinates sociologists is how personal these rumors feel to strangers. People don't just consume royal gossip, they participate in it. They analyze, debate, defend, attack. It's not about the facts, it's about belonging to the conversation. When someone says, "Did you hear what the insider revealed?" they're not sharing news, they're joining a tribe. And that tribal energy, multiplied by billions of clicks, becomes unstoppable. By the time palace aides attempt damage control, the narrative has already been woven into collective imagination. Correcting it would mean challenging people's sense of identity. Because if you've built hours of discussion around a rumor, admitting it's false feels like losing a piece of yourself. So what does an insider revelation really reveal? Not royal secrets, not political conspiracies, but us. Our craving for connection, our suspicion of power, our hunger for meaning in a chaotic world. When a royal birth becomes a global guessing game, it says less about the royals and more about the emptiness of a culture addicted to content. And yet, the story persists because mystery is profitable. Entire media ecosystems now thrive on the gray zone between fact and fiction. Influencers gain followers, networks get clicks, even debunkers profit from the controversy they try to extinguish. Doria Ragland's name, quiet and dignified, still trends years later. Not because she did something, but because she represents the last untouched space in a world that demands exposure. Maybe that's why she stays silent. Maybe she's the last reminder that not everything belongs to the public. But for those addicted to insider revelations, silence is the loudest provocation of all. And so, every few months, a new voice emerges online claiming to have the real story. A former aide, a nurse, a neighbor. Each one feeds the cycle. Each one blurs the line a little more. Until one day, the rumor machine goes too far, and someone decides to push back. Because according to industry whispers, a high-profile investigative journalist has begun assembling a documentary not about Meghan or Doria themselves, but about us, the audience, the rumor economy, the way truth disintegrates under the weight of clicks. And when that documentary drops, it may expose something far more shocking than any palace secret. The uncomfortable reality that we created this chaos ourselves. Because what comes next isn't about who lied, but about who listened. And no one, on either side of the royal curtain, is ready for that reckoning. Because what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The palace never sleeps. Not really. Even in the quiet hours, when the tourists are gone, the flags hang still, and London hums like a resting beast. Somewhere inside those limestone walls, a light stays on. That's the communications wing. The crisis room. The invisible heart of royal damage control. Because when you are one of the most recognizable families on earth, rumor isn't a nuisance, it's an occupational hazard. And for every headline that flatters, there are 10 waiting to explode. Welcome to the royal press machine, where history meets PR, and tradition is polished daily like a crown that can never tarnish. The first rule of royal survival: control the story before it controls you. Every morning begins with a ritual older than smartphones. Palace staff scan the tabloids, the broadsheets, and now, the trending hashtags. The job isn't curiosity, it's containment. What's blowing up? Who's quoted whom? Which word needs replacing in the next statement to shift tomorrow's tone from crisis to clarification? If something unfavorable appears, the team moves fast. A background briefing here. A palace source there. A quiet correction slipped to a trusted journalist who will rewrite the narrative in softer ink. It's not deception, it's orchestration. Reputation management, elevated to royal art form. Because perception is the monarchy's oxygen. The Queen's dignity, Charles's authority, William's reliability. These aren't mere traits, they're strategic assets. Lose the story, lose the crown's aura. The illusion of transparency. Every public moment feels candid. The walkabouts, the smiles, the little jokes about family life. But nothing is spontaneous. Each interaction has been studied, rehearsed, cross-checked against the news cycle. Never complain, never explain, the late Queen famously said. But modern media doesn't honor silence. So the palace evolved. Complain privately, explain strategically. When a storm brews, say, whispers about tension between brothers, or speculation about Meghan's new project, staff ask one question. What do we need the public to feel? Notice the phrasing. Not think, but feel. Empathy outlasts accuracy. If people feel sympathy, the facts become secondary. If they feel outrage, even truth won't save you. The palace's PR teams have mastered this calculus for generations. The three-tier defense system. Former aides described the royal media strategy as a fortress with three walls. Wall 1, diversion. If an unpleasant headline is incoming, release a different story, a new photo, a charity initiative, a lighthearted anecdote. Timing is everything. One joyful image of a royal baby can bury a scandal 3 columns deep. Wall 2, delegation. If diversion fails, leak context through sources close to the family. These anonymous quotes sound off the record but are often choreographed. They redirect blame downward, to staff, protocols, or miscommunication. Wall 3, delay. When neither distraction nor delegation works, the palace waits. Attention spans are short. Today's outrage is tomorrow's meme. Let time do the cleaning. It's ruthless in its elegance, and it works more often than not. When privacy becomes rebellion. Then Meghan arrived. She was fluent in media, she'd lived on red carpets. But Hollywood publicity runs on openness. Royal publicity runs on mystique. To the monarchy, Meghan's insistence on setting her own boundaries looked like defiance. To her, it was survival. This clash wasn't about personalities. It was about systems colliding. She treated the press as negotiable. The palace treated it as sacred. So when she and Harry sought more control, choosing private photographers, issuing statements directly, the traditional machinery panicked. If the couple controlled their own narrative, the institution risked losing its monopoly on truth. From that moment, every gesture was reframed as conflict, independence branded as rebellion, silence read as arrogance, privacy mistaken for secrecy. And the palace machine did what it always does, neutralized the threat by flooding the field with alternate stories. 5. The myth of the royal insider. Here's the paradox. Most of what the world knows about royal PR leaks through the same anonymous insiders it supposedly fights against. Some are real staffers. Others are freelancers who smell opportunity. Either way, the effect is the same, rumor with a business card. Sometimes the palace lets these leaks run unchecked. They provide plausible deniability. We never said that. Other times, they serve as smoke signals, testing public reaction before an official move. The result? A hall of mirrors where truth bends depending on which reflection the audience prefers. 6. The emotional cost. Behind the strategy charts and press schedules are human beings, communications officers who live in permanent adrenaline. One former staffer described it like putting out fires with perfume. You can't extinguish the blaze, only mask the smell. Every misstep, every photograph, every misinterpreted gesture can spiral into days of global coverage. Staff members burn out. Royals retreat. The institution keeps spinning. And in the middle of that noise, someone like Doria Ragland, who never signed up for royal choreography, finds herself pulled into the storm. Her choice to stay silent becomes a headline. Her presence at a charity event, an appearance. The machinery doesn't need permission, it just needs content. 7. The choreography of redemption. When controversy threatens to stick, the palace stages redemption arcs. A heartfelt speech. A family photo emphasizing unity. A sudden charity visit to an underreported cause. It's image triage. Stitch the narrative before the wound becomes visible. You've seen it dozens of times. Scandal today, soft focus profile tomorrow. The story isn't erased, it's reframed. The royal family doesn't fight dirt with denial. It buries it under dignity. And the audience, yearning for reassurance, accepts the rewrite. Because deep down, people don't want the monarchy to fall. They want it to endure. It's a living fairy tale, and even fairy tales need a touch of scandal to stay interesting. 8. The new battlefield, social media. In the digital age, the palace faces an enemy it can't out-protocol: virality. Tweets travel faster than press releases. TikToks outpace televised speeches. Every royal moment now comes with two audiences: the traditionalists reading newspapers and the meme makers editing clips into sound bites. So the monarchy adapted again. Younger staff monitor trends, seed positive narratives, and quietly flag misinformation for removal. But the system remains reactive. The internet doesn't wait for official comment. It fills the void instantly. This is the real reason royal PR feels perpetual. You can't manage perception in an environment that never sleeps. You can only surf it, hoping not to drown. 9. The human paradox. Here's the twist the tabloids never print. The monarchy's obsession with control stems from fear, not arrogance. Fear of irrelevance. Fear that the institution built on ceremony might crumble in a world that prizes authenticity. So every polished statement, every carefully staged photo, is a plea to remain meaningful. We still matter, the imagery whispers. We still belong in your hearts. It's easy to mock the machinery, but in truth, it mirrors the public's own contradictions. We demand honesty from people. We also demand to be perfect. We want transparency, but we punish imperfection. How can anyone win that game? 10. The next evolution. Inside PR circles, whispers suggest the palace is re-engineering its strategy once again, moving from damage control to digital storytelling. Instead of hiding flaws, they'll humanize them. Instead of silencing emotion, they'll amplify it selectively. It's a gamble. Authenticity can't be scripted for long. But the monarchy, ever pragmatic, knows survival means evolution. And that evolution will test everyone, from veteran courtiers to the next generation of royals trying to define what modern even means. 11. A mother's silence amid the noise. Through all of this, statements, spin, and storm, Doria Ragland remains the quiet constant. She has never joined the press circuit, never given interviews, never profited from proximity. In a world where every whisper is monetized, her silence is radical. Perhaps that's why she fascinates people. She embodies what the royal machine cannot replicate: genuine discretion. Her silence reminds us that some truths don't belong in headlines, that not everything sacred needs explanation. And in an industry built on revelation, that restraint is the ultimate rebellion. 12. The cliffhanger. The machine turns inward. But here's the twist no one expected. According to PR insiders, the palace's biggest challenge ahead isn't the press, or social media, or even public skepticism. It's itself. The same machinery that shields the royals from scandal has begun to consume them. Blurred messages, overlapping agendas, rival teams spinning contradictory stories. The fortress is cracking from within. Because when every branch of the institution fights to control the narrative, no one notices the simplest truth. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than spin. And when that realization finally reaches the top, when someone inside decides that the only way to save the monarchy is to expose how it really works, everything will change. Because behind the marble walls and polished statements, there are still human hearts beating. And hearts, unlike press releases, can break. What happens when one of them decides to speak? When the truth comes not from the press, but from within the palace itself. Because what comes next will rewrite the royal story once again. And no one, absolutely no one, saw it coming.